What's up everybody, it's me Blake Duran 6 with a review for you guys. This review is going to be on the Sega Game Gear. If you guys aren't too familiar with what the Sega Game Gear is, basically it was Sega's attempt to take part in the portable gaming industry when it first had started out. Just like today, knowing that Nintendo dominates all portables, also when portables first started, Nintendo dominated back then as well. They dominated with the Nintendo Game Boy. The Nintendo Game Boy was very popular, reason being it was your opportunity and chance to play portable Nintendo games on the go. Though this was a great handheld and system, it had a few downfalls, one being that the screen was black and white, the sound wasn't too great, and the screen was kind of small. But it was, like I said, very popular because it gave gamers the opportunity to play video games on the go. At this time, when Nintendo and Sega were constantly in competition as the main two gaming systems, Sega decided to put their own console and system into the portable gaming industry, and their attempt was the Sega Game Gear. The Sega Game Gear had many more superior features than the original Game Boy, one being that it had a colored screen, which the Game Boy didn't, and also had very good sound quality compared to the original 8-bit Game Boy. This Game Gear was technically a 16-bit system on the go. Now to get into the Game Gear, like I had stated, one of the main draws to it was that it had a colored screen. And being that it had a colored screen, it didn't really matter the time of day. You can play at all times, you can play in the dark, you can play any times during the day, and you can always see the screen. But if you played out in the sun usually would reflect on it. It was hard to see. But like I said, you could play at night, and that was something you couldn't do with the Game Boy unless you had a really good light. Also, it had a better D-pad, but a few bad things was, you look to the back, it took 6 AA batteries, and no matter what kind of AA batteries you took, it literally ate your batteries. I remember as a kid, I would buy like $20 Energizer batteries. That's how much they were back then. And they would last literally 2 hours if I was lucky. And the thing would completely eat my batteries. But luckily there was an expansion pack, not an expansion pack, there was a battery pack that you can plug into it, and let me show you that to you. So now I have the battery pack plugged in. As you can see, the battery pack is literally the same size as the Game Gear. That's one of the downfalls, is it's huge. It also adds a little weight to your Game Gear as well, but with the little bit of complaints, it also gives you 8 hours of playtime, so you can't really complain because you'll be saving a lot of money on batteries with this battery pack. Now let's actually get on to the gameplay. As you can see, turn it on, and you have a colored screen, which was one of the main differences, obviously, between the Game Boy and the Game Gear, was the colored screen. Unfortunately, the speaker on my Game Gear did die down a little, so the sound isn't as good as it was, but I tell you, the Game Gear had excellent sound and it was extremely loud and impressive for a handheld product. My opinion, way better than the Game Boy. Now, this game I have in is Mortal Kombat 2, which is pretty much identical to the Sega Genesis port. Like I said, the Game Gear was pretty much a 16-bit portable console, meaning that a lot of the Genesis ports and games got ported onto the Game Gear, and they were really good. That's something that the Game Boy didn't have. Even though the Nintendo did come out with a colored version, in my opinion, the Game Gear is far more superior than even the Nintendo Game Boy Color. Now you guys might be wondering, if the Game Gear was so impressive, why wasn't it as successful as the Nintendo Game Boy? Well, simple. Like I said, the batteries got eaten alive in the Game Gear, and I guess not everybody wanted to buy the battery pack. Also, too, it's Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo always had awesome marketing schemes, and even though Sega could compete back in the days with the Genesis, they just couldn't compete with the Game Boy. But this is me, Blake Doing 6, giving you guys a quick review on the Sega Game Gear. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe for future reviews. And let me know what you guys think of the Sega Game Gear. Did you have one? In my opinion, I thought it was pretty much better than the Game Boy. Do you guys think the same? Peace.